Hello again and welcome to another Mordian Glory video. In today's episode, I want to talk about the fantastic time I had at the Warlord Games Open Day 2024. That's right, I got to go to the heart of my bolt action addiction and get some cool behind the scenes footage of what they do at Warlord Games. And don't worry if you feel like you missed out and you didn't go to the open day, maybe you didn't know it was on. Warlord Games does one of these things every single year. So if you didn't get a chance to go to this one, you'll be able to go to the next one. And what's kind of cool is, as someone who went to one last year and went to this year's one, you do see how Warlord changes over the years and how they improve and update things. And I'm going to be commenting on some of the interesting changes that I saw between the two open days. But without further ado, let's fix bayonets and charge right into today's episode. Achtung, conscripts! Warlord Games is now an official sponsor of the Mordian Glory channel. And not only that, they have given me an affiliate link which I have popped down in the description below. By using that link, you can get your hands on some awesome World War II bolt action miniatures and at the same time support the Mordian Glory channel.
Bring it to me, Fagerite! 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 Fagerite!
You have all the ideas, so what are you waiting for? Do the right thing and buy yourself some bolt action today. First things first, I want to say a big thank you to Warlord for inviting me down to take part in the open day. Myself and a whole bunch of other content creators had the red carpet rolled out for us, and Warlord Games definitely looked after us. Not only was it great to meet some other YouTubers who enjoy bot action, but also we got a special content creator tour around the facility, and we got to go around with other like-minded people and ask lots of questions of the Warlord staff. And our first stop on this tour was an opportunity to chat with the fantastic Mr. John Stallard, who is one of the co-founders of Warlord Games. John is a classic wargamer and, if I may say so, a real character and a bit of a typical British eccentric, and it's always great fun to have an opportunity to chat with him. One of the funny things about John is, with him being one of the co-founders, often he just starts talking about a lot of the projects they've got in the works, and you can almost see the other members of the team and like the marketing team being like, John, stop, we're not ready to talk about this yet. And he goes, oh well, I'm the founder, I'll just talk about it anyway, people are interested, I want to talk about it. It's just brilliant, and so it was a really good opportunity to start the tour with being able to have a good chat with him. And not only did we get a chance to talk with John, but there were some of the other greats at Warlord, such as Alessio and Rick Priestley, who were just wandering around, just available to have a chat with. And it's really cool being able to see and have a talk with the OGs of tabletop wargaming. But after our introduction with John, we then were whisked away to have a good look at the design and painting teams. This is a really fascinating part of the tour because you really get to learn about how things are done, the creative process at Warlord. You can see how the models are painted, how they are designed. They use a lot of the 3D modeling software now, but they also very much still embrace old school techniques like molding the models from green stuff or building them scratch built out of various bits of plastic, resin and plasticard. What I found really cool was how each member of the team was a specialist and an expert in their field. You would have someone there whose whole thing was just painting the Napoleonics and the bright uniforms, and that's just what they did. They just specialized in just making those uniforms look as accurate as possible and really eye-catching and popping on the tabletop. Great for the photos. And then you have another guy whose whole job was just painting the bolt action models and trying to get the uniforms historically accurate and make them look like proper camouflage. And then you had a member of the team called Kirsten who just painted all things wacky and wonderful, and she actually had a leaflet on her desk which she was handing out to people saying, give me your ideas for Conflict 47 color schemes, which I thought was really good. I think as a consumer and player of these games, sometimes it's easy to forget that behind every single painted model that you see in an army book or a codex, or behind every single model that you are building and painting, it's not a machine that has created this, but it's an actual person, someone who has sat down and poured their vision and their imagination into making the things that we love and play with every single day. And it was just such a fantastic opportunity to be able to put a few faces together and be able to ask people like what their favorite thing was that they worked on, what they enjoyed painting most, and what was their passion. And I know this might seem like a strange thing to comment on, but looking around the room, I recognize pretty much everyone in that team from the last year that I was there. And as someone who's worked in a company environment before, and especially places which had a lot of staff turnover, it was actually really cool to see the same dedicated, passionate people still just doing what they love. But if I'm being a little selfish for a moment, the best bit about the painting and design team is seeing all of the cool painted models, and especially the sneak previews. They've got painted models for all of their game systems, and I made sure to take lots and lots of photos. But they also have a cabinet with new releases, and if you look around the room enough and you look in that cabinet, not only will you see models that are already released, but you will see some sneak previews that they've sort of dotted about to give you a hint of what Warlord is working on. So as we're going through this video and as I'm talking about the whole tour and the open day in general, I'll make sure to drop in lots of photos and video clips from when I was in the design team's room, and if you look close enough you might find a few hidden gems. But after this we get to my favorite part of the tour, which is how the models are made and the behind the scenes look at the manufacturing process. First up we have the traditional resin. This is for a lot of the bolt action vehicles and also some of their other specialist games like Cruel Seas. How it works is they have a two-part epoxy. They mix the two chemicals together and then they pour that mixture into a silicone mold and they tape it up nice and tight and they leave it for a bit. It's an exothermic reaction, and once it has completed, they open the mold up and there you have the miniature or the piece of miniature cast in resin. But what was wild about this part of the tour is it completely busted some myths that I have heard about resin models. For example, you know when you get let's say a model from Forge World in Games Workshop, and I know this isn't a Games Workshop video, so I'll keep this brief. But maybe you bought some of the old resin Kriegsman and the lads guns were bent all over the place. Or maybe they discontinued making a model, and whenever you ask people online about it, they're like, oh, the mold cracked, or the mold cracked and they can't remake it again. That is just bollocks. Now, I'm not saying that Games Workshop is bollocks. I'm saying that when someone says that to you, that is bollocks. Because I had a good chat with the guy who did the resin molding part of the tour, and I said, what happens when one of the molds wears out? And he said, we just make another one. Yeah, molds don't last forever. In fact, they are considered a disposable, consumable thing. So but they have something called a master, which is basically like a model which they use to make the molds. And if a mold starts degrading, like they start noticing that bits of it start coming out stuck to the model that they've just created with it, they'll throw that mold away and they'll use the master to make a new mold. So I asked, well, what happens if the master breaks or degrades? And they said, we just make a new master. So next time you hear someone say that X is this quality because the mold is degraded and they've lost the way of making it, that is just categorically bullshit. But after the traditional resin, we moved on to the next part of the manufacturing, and that is the new resin. Warlord resin is a fairly new and unique product for the company, but it's one that I find fascinating and something that I have been keeping a close eye on myself. If any of you are familiar with Cyocast, it's similar to that. But if you've no idea what I'm talking about, how it works is they take what looks a little bit like a metal model mold, except they put it into a small plastic injection molding machine, a Cyocast machine. And essentially, it's the mixture that they pump into the mold. It's totally recyclable. It's sort of part resin, part plastic, and allows them to take the detail of traditional resin models, but make them in a much cleaner, much safer, and much quicker way. And what has been crazy is seeing how many models Warlord has converted over to this new resin. You used to get all your weapon teams in metal, and now I find more and more of them are in this new Warlord resin, and as a consumer of the product, I have to say, I just prefer it. I know that there's something old school about metal models, and I do love metal models, don't get me wrong, I got a whole crap load of them. But the more that I've interacted with the Warlord resin, the more that it's made me just enjoy it. Because you get all the benefits of the metal models, they come in one piece, you just stick them on the base, they're good to go, but you get that detail of the resin models as well. It really does feel like the best of both worlds. But whilst I had the opportunity, I did ask the new resin team if they were planning on expanding, on bringing more products over, and they said they were just taking their time with it because they do want to see what they can make with it, but it's still a little bit of an experimental product. They're still finding the formula. And also, they know their audience. Warlord knows their audience, and they know that for some people, it almost doesn't matter how good plastic models get, or resin models get, or new resin models get. Some of the old grognards, some of the OGs, the Longbeard players, those salt of the earth types, they just prefer the metal minis, and for them it's about that weighty model. And so I was told by the new resin team that metal models are still going to be a big part of the Warlord range, but they are always looking to sort of expand and improve their processes, and new resin is also going to be doing some new and exciting stuff as well. So good for everyone. But then we get to the last part of the manufacturing that you get to see, and that is the metal casting. Good old pewter models. And out of all of the model making bits that I saw, this was the one that felt like it had changed and evolved the most. Last time I saw the metal casting, it was done manually by hand. Essentially, you have a machine which you stick the mold onto, and that spins the mold around really quickly, and there's a hole in the top of the machine and in the mold, and a person gets a ladle full of liquid pewter out of a vat that's literally just stood next to them, and they pour it in, and then the centrifugal force pushes the liquid metal out before it cools, and it makes the models. Now they've got rid of that manual part. You no longer have to look over the machine and pour the liquid metal in, risking spilling any of it or potentially inhaling any fumes. They have what's called an auto caster, and that machine basically does all of the pouring and the casting. And what the staff now do is essentially constantly just like pulling metal models out of molds. Whilst I was just watching them, there was two people just full time just extracting molds. It was really a very fast-paced process, and it feels like it's really made the whole thing much quicker, much more efficient. But I was chatting to the guy that was running that part of the tour, and I said, well, is this going to replace anybody? And he went, no, we still have the same number of staff because we need someone who is able to operate the machine if anything goes wrong, someone who knows how to like fix it, tweak the process and all that kind of stuff. And all it's really done is allowed Warlord Games to just make metal models at a volume and a rate that they've not done before. So it's really cool to see how they're not making themselves more efficient and then cutting down other areas. They are keeping the staff, and they're just using it to go from strength to strength and just constantly sort of increase volume and increase capability. Sadly, Warlord Games does not have any plastic injection molding done on site. They make all their plastic models somewhere else, but it is still very nice to see how some of the more specialist processes take place. And one that really jumps out to me with the metal casting and with the new resin is how Warlord seems to be expanding and exploring and constantly evolving these two processes. And also what I thought was very nice was how there's no waste in these processes. If a metal model comes out and it is miscast, you can take that model and just put it straight back into the liquid metal vat, and it will basically instantly melt back down until you can try and make it again. And likewise with the new resin, the cyocasting stuff, any models that don't come out right, they have a grinder on site. They literally grind the model back down into a fine powder, and they can pour that powder back into the machine and it can be reused. This just makes the process quite efficient, and if anything goes wrong, you don't end up with a whole bunch of waste. But with that said, we then came to the end of the tour, but that certainly was not the end of the open day. There was lots of other things to enjoy and explore, with one of the biggest draws being the seminars that were done by some of the head honchos and big cheeses at Warlord. You had John Stallard and Rick Priestley, who had a big seminar where they talked about all things like the new bolt action, and also they revealed that they were looking at doing bolt action Boer War, which is very, very cool. And there's even a few hints to other games like Conflict 47, which was dropped in there as well. But fortunately for all of us, another YouTuber by the way of Tabletop Miniatures did manage to record the seminars, and I have been given permission to use a few highlights from that footage, and I'm going to link down in the description below a link to the channel where you can watch the seminars in their entirety. But here are a few clips from those seminars with some really juicy details and news.
Then a Boer War book, bit weird, but nice. And then Crimean book as well.
They've got a schedule in mind kind of a release.
They're all like that. Those are the ones that if I can remember them, they're coming out within 7 months. I know the way it works when you get a bit old. but lots more eventually. Oh, the Samurai one as well. Samurai one, which doesn't float my boat, but so many people said, "Oh, fantastic!"
Like Pike and Shot.
Yeah, that's right. Shot. So that's going to be really good. So lots of books, which is just great.
And figures to go with it, because I think upstairs you had some nice Boer War. People did this.
Yeah, we did. Yeah,
there's some new figures and new releases.
Yeah, I mean, Boer War is a niche of a niche, because it's what I wanted to write, so I did.
Which system did you pick for Boer War? Because I remember you and Paul having a discussion whether to put it in bolt action or black powder.
What a great question. Which system is it, bolt action or black powder? Because it's 1900, isn't it, effectively? Exactly on the cusp of when it all changed. Well, I've written it as black powder, but I've got Dylan, who writes all our books, suddenly said, "Can I help you finish that Boer War book? Because I haven't quite finished it off." And he's going to put in alternative bolt action rules, so you can play it either way, which is a really good idea, I think. Over the first time we've had one of those. So small skirmisher game with bolt action rifles, literally, or a bit, the larger battles of the Boer War. So I think it will cover both. World War One. We nearly did World War One bolt action. Can you remember that?
Yes, and then I said no because it's tedious. As I recall.
I'm glad you came next to this one. The opening moves were far from tedious. Very interesting battles, the first ones, and the last ones, as anybody knows anything about.
And Middle East.
Middle East.
Middle East, Africa.
Yeah, no, there's a lot there, really. There was a Canadian group who did some rules for it, and sent them in. They were very good. They were very well covered, I thought, actually. Post-career supplement would be great, or a rule book, and then there may be 4 or 5 different books from there. Indo-Pakistani War, Iraq, Iran, whatever it might be, NATO, Fulda Gap type stuff.
All the Middle East wars.
A lot of them.
A lot of them. Independence, all that kind of thing.
So yeah, I think a modern day one would be quite popular, and we just can't get round to doing them all at once. But certainly never say never.
Yeah, it's funny. I quite like the Russians. I think they're
Russia's going to be redone.
Yeah.
We're going to do them with all the plastics.
Okay.
They're going to be redone with all the weapons in the arms.
Okay.
Wonderful figure designer Wojtek. He's pining to do Polish and plastic, and he even got a trade account in Tokyo to make a video saying all their customers, every time the customers came in, they picked up a plastic box set and learned to say, "Please make these in Polish." 15 Japanese people asked me for them in Polish, and he sent it through to us saying, "Look, there's lots of people want them."
What release in the next 12 months are you most excited for?
Conflict 47. It's going to be bloody awesome. Andy Chambers, as we know, is a fantastic writer, and we're giving him a lot of rope, so to speak, to make it fairly crazy. And Yeah, conflict.
And in addition to the seminars, there were lots and lots of demos for all of the different game systems that Warlord does, of course, including Bolt Action 3rd Edition, where there were a lot of people getting to grips with the new game. And also, speaking of 3rd Edition, if you had pre-ordered your book, you get it a week early, picking it up as part of the open day. And they also had some early access to the models. So if you wanted to buy yourself a box of the new Winter Fallschirmjäger or Winter Americans, you could do that and get yourself some swag. Speaking of swag, they also were handing out goodie bags, and they had sprues that you could build whilst you were at Warlord and then take the models home with you. So I got my hands on some US paratroopers, and also, and I was not expecting this at all, but Warlord Games, they treated me good whilst I was there, and I came away with a new Battle of the Bulge box set compliments of Warlord, and I want to do a special shout out to my man Kieran for sorting that out, because that was a very, very generous and very unexpected surprise. And I was so excited that I immediately went to the Warlord Games store and I bought all of the different dice and order dice and dice bags for my armies, because I am just so looking forward to making lots and lots of bolt action battle reports, and it's about time that I had the right dice and was adding that extra level of detail. So big thank you to Warlord for the swag, and I even went and bought some of my own swag as well. But I think that just about covers everything. Thank you guys for watching. I hope you enjoyed this video. Let me know what you think down in that comment section. What are you most excited for with Warlord? The new game's coming out, that announcement by John, that Conflict 47 is coming in the next 12 months, a big update or something maybe around that. And what about Bolt Action's 3rd Edition? Has the new version of the best World War II tabletop game finally enticed you in? And if so, what factions are you looking to pick up? And of course, let me know if you spotted any sneak previews, any hidden gems whilst watching this video. If you did enjoy it, don't forget to smash that like button and subscribe. It really does help boost the video with the good old YouTube algorithm. Would you like to know more? If so, then please consider becoming a channel member or patron. By supporting the channel, not only will you be doing your part, but you'll also be helping me create more content for your viewing pleasure and unlocking a whole host of perks. You get everything from a badge next to your name, custom emojis, but the big one is access to the Mordian Glory Discord server, an online community with almost 2,500 active members. It's always popping off in the MG Discord. We've got channels for army lists, hobbying, tactics, stories, and even a pretty spicy meme section as well. For all you greenhorns that wanted to see the Mordian glory hole, today is your lucky day. And joking aside, I do want to say a massive thank you to all of the current channel members and patrons. You guys are amazing. Truly the lifeblood of the channel. I could not do Mordian Glory full-time without the incredible and generous support of my members. So thank you guys so much. And last but certainly not least, I want to say a personal thank you to all of my top tier Patreons. These are the War Masters, the people who have truly gone above and beyond the call of duty. So a heartfelt thank you to Alex Dengal, Bon Vert, Lord Pryor, Mark Panconi, RJ Scorpion, Swordfish Trombone, Try Again Bragg, John Stubbs, Nick Walsh, Diesel Fox, and August Barney. Seriously, guys, thank you from the bottom of my heart. Your support is incredible and it makes a huge difference. Thank you so much. That's all for now. Hope you've all enjoyed today's video. And of course, as always, I'll see you guys next time.